Hi, I'm Ali Luke. This is How to Write and Publish a Novel in 2 years. So you probably can't just take a year out to work on your novel. I know it's a dream for many of us, but if you've got family, if you've got a day job, if you've got money to be thinking about, if you've got responsibilities that you need to be taking care of, then just stopping everything for a year so you can write is probably a bit of a pipe dream. That's okay, because you really don't need a whole year. What you need is 30 minutes every day. That's not nothing, but it's achievable, I think, even if you have a pretty busy life. And here's the maths on that. 30 minutes a day is 500 words in those 30 minutes will give you a 75,000 word draft in 5 months. That's a pretty decent rate of drafting. There are professional writers who don't write that quickly. And if you can just be consistent and do that 30 minutes a day, you will have that finished draft after 5 months. I think this is a much better way of working than to sort of throw yourself into the writing for maybe a month or two and then to hit a block in the writing or to hit a busy spell in your life and do nothing for a week or for 2 weeks, and then it just drags on into months of not writing. Then when you get back into your novel, it's harder to figure out where you left off and what was going on in the draft and so on. So although this might feel like slow progress if you're used to writing in longer sessions or in sort of bigger bursts each week, I think this will give you consistent progress over time. So here's how the 2-year plan works, just in a nutshell. You can see it all on one screen here. So I've allowed a couple of months for the research, the planning, the outlining, the kind of everything that goes before the writing at the start, then 5 months for a full draft and 5 months for a full redraft of that material, which means that if you're like me, you have the time to literally start from a blank page and draft all over again. That's what I found most efficient for me. Some people obviously want to redraft a bit differently, but I'd still allow those 5 months. Then 3 months for getting on with some admin work while you're waiting for feedback from your editor or from beta readers. And you may find that they get feedback to you more quickly, but I think it's good to allow those 3 months here in case there's a bit of a hold up. Then a further 3 months for editing, for incorporating that feedback, which might mean making some big changes. Then another couple of months of admin, another couple of months of editing, and then finally the proofreading of your novel and then getting it out there, publishing it, either publishing it yourself in ebook format perhaps, and maybe as a print on demand edition, or sending it out to agents at this stage. So here's how it all looks in a little bit more detail. Year 1 is basically just about writing. So in months 1 and 2, you're spending 30 minutes a day working on your research, your plan and your outline. And your goal after those 2 months is to have a complete chapter by chapter outline, to feel confident that you know what you're going to be writing, so that when you sit down to write for those 30 minutes, you don't spend half the time just scratching your head, or you don't end up having multiple sessions where you're just writing scenes that don't really go anywhere because you're not sure what's happening next. Then months 3 to 7 are drafting, sitting down every day and writing 500 words. Hopefully that should take you about 30 minutes. And your goal here is to have a complete first draft. I've allowed for a draft of about 75 to 80,000 words. That's going to be a good fit for most genres. If you're writing something like romance, you might want to be aiming more like 50,000 words, so you can be done a bit quicker. If you're writing epic sci-fi or something, it might be much longer. So you may need to adjust either the number of months you're spending here, or you may need to think about putting in an extra 10 or 15 minutes a day just to boost the word count a bit more. Then months 8 to 12 are redrafting. Again, a daily target of 500 words here, and your goal is to just have a complete redraft of that material. By the time you get to the end of month 12, you should feel reasonably happy with your novel. You're ready for it to go to some beta readers or to an editor. There may well still be some problems. You may be aware of those, or you may kind of subtly sense that there's some things that aren't quite right, but you feel that the novel is essentially complete and there's no really major areas where you're missing out half a plot, or you've got a character in there who appears in chapters 1 to 3 and then disappears completely and is never seen again, or some of those first draft type mistakes or issues that you might be finding. Then year 2, the first part of year 2 is feedback and editing. So in the months where you're getting feedback, which I've put in blue here, you can be dealing with admin stuff while your novel's with your editor or your beta readers. So, for instance, in months 13 to 15, this is quite a good time to be thinking about commissioning a cover design for your novel. And it could also mean that you're swapping with your beta readers. So if you're not paying for editing, somebody's presumably doing it for free for you, which is lovely, but you may have some sort of reciprocal arrangement whereby you're also beta reading their manuscript. So you can be spending your writing time on that at this stage of the plan. Then once you've had that first round of feedback, you've got 3 months to edit and to incorporate what you've got. So you'll want to be editing about 900 words a day at this stage in order to stay on track. And obviously the nature of editing is that some days you may find you whiz through twice that much, and some days you spend ages on just a couple of hundred words and getting them right. But by the end of those 3 months, you should have a full edit that incorporates the changes from your editor and your beta readers. Then I strongly recommend getting a second round of editorial feedback in months 19 and 20. Unless you've had a lot of experience and you're very confident that all the issues thrown up previously are just fairly minor ones that you've now successfully dealt with. Personally, I always like to try and get a bit more feedback here, even if it's just a quick read through from one beta reader, just to make sure that everything's kind of flowing and I haven't introduced any new problems. By the time you get this feedback, you're hopefully ready to just put a little bit more effort into polishing up your novel basically, and getting ready to then publish it or to submit it to agents. So this is also a good time for you to deal with admin stuff like maybe getting a website set up, or writing the blurb for your book, or just getting a list of reviewers ready, anything that's going to put you in a good position to be able to publish in 4 months' time. Then you've got a couple of months for making any final edits. At this point, you're hopefully going to be quite fast and averaging about 1,300 words a day edited. By the end of this stage, you really want to have a final professional quality version of your novel. So as far as you're concerned, it's hopefully done, it's perfect at this point. Month 23, though, is proofreading, because however perfect you think it is, there's almost sure to be a few typos lurking in there. Certainly, I always find that's the case for me. It's really, really difficult to spot your own typos, so I strongly recommend shipping your manuscript off to someone else to proofread at this stage. And again, you could be getting on with some of that admin work, just getting things ready for publishing while you're waiting here. Then finally, month 24, the very end of these 2 years, is when you publish. So this could be that you're uploading your ebook onto Amazon and making it available virtually, or it could be that you're sending out your manuscript to agents or direct to publishing houses if they accept unagented manuscripts. So obviously, if you're going to agents, you're not necessarily going to have a book deal by the end of month 24. Certainly your book isn't going to be out there on the shelves that quickly. If you're self-publishing, however, it's all in your control and you can have some very quick turnaround times there. So there's probably a couple of questions cropping up for you right now. One is, where do I find the time for this? Even 30 minutes a day is a commitment and something that's going to be probably a little bit difficult at times. And how do I write fast enough? How do I write 500 words in those 30 minutes every day? Because that is a pretty good pace. So 30 minutes a day doesn't necessarily have to mean you sit down every single day for half an hour, though that's what I do personally. It could mean that you do 3.5 hours once a week. So for instance, that could be 7 o'clock till 10:30 on Saturday mornings. If you're working Monday to Friday, that's maybe a good time for you. It could mean that you do 1 hour and 45 minutes twice a week, so that could easily fit into a couple of evenings, maybe between about 8 o'clock and 9:45 on Mondays and Thursdays, for instance. And that gives you some solid writing time without taking over your life and requiring you to sit there for hours every single night. It could be 42 minutes, I got really precise with the maths here, 5 times a week. So that's, say, 12:15 to 12:57 p.m. on weekdays. That fits into your lunch hour and hopefully still gives you time to eat a sandwich. Or it could mean 15 minutes twice a day, and depending on how the rest of your life looks, that might be easier for you to achieve than to get a full 30-minute block once a day. So that could mean, say, waking up early, writing for 15 minutes first thing, and then writing for another 15 minutes just before bed. When both my children were very, very young, they're a teeny bit older now, and I had a newborn baby and a young toddler, I was usually managed to fit in 2 15-minute slots a day, one while both of them were napping and then one later on in the evening. and that was pretty much the only way I could get any writing time at that point at all. So figure out what will work best for you, but I'm betting that one of these options will fit into your life, even if it means juggling some things around, potentially getting some childcare, or really making a point perhaps of taking your lunch hour at work or something. Obviously you can chop and change, you can do different things different weeks. What matters is that across a week you get the equivalent of 7 30-minute sessions. So that's 3.5 hours total across that week. Then to write 500 words in half an hour, I think this is achievable. It's fast, but it's not ridiculously fast. So one thing is just to be ruthless about eliminating any distractions. So turn off the Wi-Fi or unplug your internet cable, which is what I do when I sit down for my 30 minutes. Silence your phone. Just make sure that you are putting yourself in the best possible position to concentrate and write. Second thing is plan what you're going to write before you write it. I would say that maybe this means spending the first 5 minutes or so of a 30-minute session planning. If you've done a lot of good planning in months 1 and 2, you've done the outlining for your novel then, and you know where you're going chapter by chapter, then you might not need this. But if you sit down and you realise that you don't know where you're going next, definitely pull back a bit, get a plan in place, because otherwise you'll find yourself staring at the screen, wasting time, and you won't clock up those 500 words. Number 3 is to get excited about the scene. If you're going to write something that's kind of boring you, then it's hard to get going, it's hard to stay enthused, it's hard to write fast. And also, if your scene isn't very exciting, is there any point in it being in the novel? I mean, obviously some novels are not going to have, action-packed scene after action-packed scene. They'll have some quieter scenes. But if there's nothing in it that's actually interesting you or engaging you as a writer, chances are it won't do much for your readers. So feel free to cut out scenes that you've planned which actually don't really need to be there. Then number 4, don't stop to fact check. Just leave a note to yourself in square brackets, and then you can go through and check and confirm facts or put things in when you rewrite. So, if you need to know the distance between 2 locations, just have a rough guess and put it in for now, and then go back and check it properly later. Or if you need to know a character's eye colour, don't worry about looking these things up while you're drafting, because it's very easy to then end up going down a bit of a rabbit trail of research or of looking into other things or of just getting out of the flow of what you were writing. So, good luck with your 2-year novel. I think it's really achievable for anybody, and if you can get a novel done in 2 years, you're working much faster than a lot of writers and a lot of would-be novelists. I've known people who've been spending like 7 years or 8 years or 10 years on one novel. If you want a bit more help on this, go and check out my blog post at aliventures.com/novel in 2 years, with hyphens between the words. And you can get the blog post there. You can also get an ebook to download that's an even more detailed version of the plan, so you can just kind of be working through that as you write and as you follow these different stages. So very best of luck with your 2-year novel, and do let me know how you get on with it.